I'm Sophia, 27 years old, and have been blissfully married to my 29-year-old husband for 3 years, following a 1-year courtship. Unlike my laid-back parents who have always respected my choices, my mother-in-law is a stark contrast with her high expectations and demands. From the time we were dating, she pressured us to marry, embarrassed by her son remaining single past 22 and uncomfortable explaining it to her friends. Once we married, her focus shifted to urging us to start a family immediately. She seemed oblivious to our feelings and readiness, motivated more by a desire to flaunt our milestones as her achievements to her circle of friends, a group of women in their 60s who frequently discussed their children and grandchildren. Despite our attempts to explain our position, she persisted. My father-in-law, generally dominated by my mother-in-law's stronger personality, advised my husband to avoid confrontation, suggesting it was easier to endure her pressure than to challenge it. This advice, while well-intentioned, placed us in a difficult position, forcing us to balance respect for his family dynamics with our personal boundaries. The ongoing pressure continued to build over 4 years until I reached my breaking point 3 weeks ago during a family dinner. While I was busy in the kitchen, she started promoting an herbal tea reputed to boost fertility. Overwhelmed, I retorted sharply that perhaps she should consider having another baby herself if she was so invested in the idea. This comment finally silenced her, and despite the tension, I felt a sense of relief. The situation escalated when my husband recently received a job promotion that required us to move. My mother-in-law, perhaps feeling her control wane, threatened to disinherit us from the will if we continued to defy her wishes by not having children and moving away. Despite the harshness of her words, we saw the move as a necessary step for our growth and well-being, choosing to prioritize our future over the oppressive demands and threats. Our decision has inevitably created a rift, but it has also reaffirmed our commitment to living our lives on our terms, valuing our happiness and mental health above external approval or inherited wealth. After my outspoken comment, there was a noticeable shift in our interactions with my mother-in-law. Thankfully, she stopped bringing up the topics of babies and pregnancy for the next few meetings, which was a relief for both my husband and me. Given that she lives nearby, she used to visit us unexpectedly whenever she pleased. However, post-incident, she curtailed her visits significantly, and on the occasions she did stop by, she interacted mostly with her son, avoiding me as if I were contagious. This change made me worry that I might have upset her more deeply than intended. We were concerned about the repercussions, especially considering the inheritance at stake. I admit, it sounds somewhat mercenary to maintain a relationship with in-laws mainly for financial gain. They're quite wealthy, and my husband and I can't deny that inheriting their assets would make our lives much easier. This pragmatic, albeit self-centered reasoning has been a major factor in why we've tolerated my mother-in-law's overbearing nature for so long. Living so close to them, it seemed impractical to stir up major conflicts over minor annoyances, especially as we anticipated only having to endure this situation temporarily. My husband's promotion changed everything. He had been striving for this advancement at his bank for 6 years, and it finally came through 2 days ago. Not only did he secure his own office, but he also received a substantial raise. While we were already living comfortably on our combined incomes, he as a branch manager and I as a auditor, the promotion propelled us into a better financial bracket. With this new financial security, our dependence on potential inheritance lessens, and our desire to move away from the stifling proximity to his parents grows stronger. The house we currently live in was a wedding gift from the in-laws, chosen for its closeness to them. But with our new financial independence, moving out has become a more tangible and eagerly anticipated goal. We are both keen on gaining more independence and escaping the constant scrutiny of my nosy mother-in-law. This promotion not only represents a professional success for my husband, but also marks the beginning of a new chapter for us, one where we can finally prioritize our own needs and freedom. My husband has been incredibly dedicated to his career, often working late into the night, and I supported him by managing our household alongside my own job. This teamwork has finally paid off, and one of the things we were most excited about was the opportunity to move out and gain some distance from his overbearing mother. While he loves his parents, he agrees that his mother's interference can be overwhelming, which is partly why we felt relieved when she reduced her visits after I had a moment of candor with her. We decided to host a farewell dinner for his parents, marking a new chapter before we began our house hunt, a task I was particularly excited about due to my profession in real estate. It was a bit premature, but we were eager to share our plans and celebrate the occasion. Tonight, we invited them over, but right from her arrival, my mother-in-law was noticeably cold and distant, hardly interacting with me at all. Throughout dinner, only my father-in-law engaged in conversation, while she remained sullen and disengaged. When it was time to share our news, my mother-in-law preempted us with her own announcement. We let her speak first, curious about what she had to say. To our shock, she declared that she had removed my husband from her will and planned to convince his father to do the same unless we provided her with a grandchild within the year. She didn't care whether through adoption or surrogacy, she just demanded a grandchild. She labeled us a disgrace and an embarrassment for intentionally depriving her of the joy of becoming a grandmother. This ultimatum was so absurd and unexpected that we were left speechless. Even my father-in-law was taken aback, clearly not consulted about this drastic decision. The atmosphere was charged with tension, and it became evident that any further discussions or celebrations were pointless. The evening ended on an incredibly sour note, leaving us to reconsider our relationship and the conditions under which we wanted to interact with his family moving forward. After today's emotional upheaval, my husband managed to regain his composure following the shocking news his mother revealed. Initially, he looked deeply distressed, recoiling even from her attempt to embrace him, before firmly expressing his long-held frustrations. These weren't just spur-of-the-moment feelings. They were the culmination of a lifetime of grievances that seemed almost unbearable for him. For me, witnessing this was painful. Having been part of this family dynamic for 3 years, I've seen snippets of the strain, but nothing compared to the decades my husband endured. When the confrontation reached its peak, my husband, typically reserved, was moved to tears. It was a rare and heart-wrenching sight. In an effort to de-escalate the situation, I asked my in-laws to leave, speaking calmly to ensure they would listen. My mother-in-law, visibly shaken, wanted to stay and resolve the issue, but I insisted it wasn't the right time. They eventually left, with my father-in-law offering a belated apology that felt insufficient and overdue. Once they were gone, I spent the next hour comforting my husband as he was utterly distraught. It was clear that his relationship with his parents was not just strained, it was crumbling. The responsibility to mend things lies with them, yet it seems improbable they will make amends. They've had their entire lives to offer the support and kindness a child deserves, yet they chose differently. Now, as my husband finds success, I feel they shouldn't share in our happiness. Today's events also solidified my role as his protector, particularly from his mother, who has consistently placed immense pressure on him and never acknowledged his worth. When she called later, wanting to speak with him, I asserted that she had forfeited that right. Despite her protests, I stood firm and ended the call to ensure no further disturbances would disrupt his rest. This decision, though tough, was necessary to safeguard my husband's peace of mind. After the confrontation, I decided not to engage in a pointless argument with her. However, she didn't let the matter rest and began sending me a series of texts. She blamed me for the tensions between her and her son, accusing me of being the root of their problems. She criticized me for initially hesitating to marry her son, pointing out that I was already beyond the typical age for marriage. Now, she was upset because I wasn't ready to have a baby. She claimed I was only interested in money and that I had turned her son into someone materialistic. According to her, his recent job promotion was more important to him than starting a family. Her words left me feeling terrible. I wondered if perhaps there was some truth to her accusations of materialism. My husband and I do value our financial independence, but we've also always prioritized our relationships. We've never depended on his parents financially. Our staying with them was out of a sense of duty and responsibility, not for monetary gain. It seemed unjust for her to place all the blame on me. It was too late to discuss this with any of my friends, and I worried they might be biased anyway. I also didn't want to disturb my husband with this as he was already asleep. I was restless, troubled by the thought that maybe I was the cause of the rift, yet deep down, I knew I wasn't someone who would intentionally harm others' relationships for my benefit. Earlier, when she had insulted us by saying we were a disgrace and even threatened to disinherit us because we didn't have children, I had stood up to her firmly. Now, reflecting on everything, I appreciated the support from those who had responded to my previous messages. It's been almost 2 days since that distressing dinner, and we're still not speaking to my in-laws. They tried to reach out, but my husband has decided he's done with them for good. We discussed the whole situation the following morning. I showed him the texts from his mother that painted me as the villain, influencing her son towards a more materialistic lifestyle. He reassured me that wasn't true. He even confessed that his connection with his parents had been superficial, motivated more by the inheritance than by affection. He admitted that if it weren't for the inheritance, he might have already distanced himself from them, as they had never provided the emotional support he needed. Their only gesture, it seemed, was to leave him their wealth eventually. This candid conversation with my husband reassured me that I hadn't mishandled the situation, and it helped to ease my mind about where we stood as a couple and with his family. He told me frankly that he didn't mind sounding materialistic at this point, because he had endured so much throughout his childhood and even as an adult while trying to cope with his parents' behavior. Now, he had the job and salary he desired, and he was confident that we would be fine without any inheritance. Moreover, his mother had already removed him from her will, which left little hope for reconciling their relationship. We both agreed that distancing ourselves from them was the right decision. Despite this, his mother attempted to reach out. She even appeared at our house last night, but we chose not to engage with her. It seemed pointless to try to mend things, especially since my husband had no desire to speak with her. He expressed to me his fatigue from the constant pressure and nagging, and his wish to simply enjoy our current life. Meanwhile, his mother continued to send me messages, blaming me for the rift and urging me to persuade him to reconnect with her. Her expectations were unrealistic, especially when she continued to place the blame on me for issues she herself had caused. If she had been a supportive mother and mother-in-law, we wouldn't be in this situation. Her failures in these roles left her solely responsible for the estrangement, and my husband felt completely justified in wanting to cut ties permanently. Recently, my husband and I chose a new house and are planning to move soon. He informed his father about our decision today, which greatly upset him. His father tried to persuade him to stay, but my husband's mind was made up. He had always hoped his father would stand up for him against his mother's domineering ways, but his father's reluctance to confront her had only exacerbated the situation. Now, it was too late for any regrets. While my father-in-law was upset, his reaction paled in comparison to how my mother-in-law took the news. Her devastation was profound, and despite everything, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for her desperation. However, the choices made by both of them over the years had led us to this point, and we were now focused on moving forward and building our own lives away from the turmoil. She made another attempt to persuade her son to stay, visiting us once more. This time, my husband decided to confront her directly and have a definitive conversation. I chose to stay out of it, remaining in the bedroom while they talked in the living room. I wasn't privy to their entire discussion, but my husband later shared the main points with me. He firmly told his mother that he no longer wished to maintain contact with her due to her manipulative behavior, which had turned his life into a relentless competition. She tried to manipulate the narrative, claiming she was just trying to push him to be better. However, we both knew the truth: her motives were selfish, driven by a desire to boast to friends and relatives, not genuine concern for him. Their conversation escalated into an argument when she tearfully demanded he cancel our plans to move and stay within her reach. She couldn't bear the thought of him being independent. When my husband reiterated that he was an adult capable of making his own decisions, she became hysterical. Her breakdown was loud enough that I could hear it from the bedroom, prompting me to check on the situation. I found her in a state of frenzy, throwing cushions and screaming irrationally as my husband attempted to call his father for help. I tried to intervene and calm her down, but this only redirected her fury towards me. She accused me of turning her son against her and filling his head with ideas. The situation escalated quickly, but fortunately, my father-in-law arrived just in time. He managed to lead her away, though she resisted vehemently. It was a distressing scene to witness, both scary and sad. After they left, I felt a mix of relief and sympathy. Despite my pity for her, her behavior was clearly out of control, and I hoped that this would be the last such visit. My husband and I agreed that enough was enough. Today had been an eye-opening confirmation that distancing ourselves was not only necessary but urgent for our peace and well-being. In retrospect, perhaps it wasn't the best idea for my husband to invite his mother over for a conversation, hoping to resolve things amicably. Her behavior made it clear that she still doesn't regard him as an adult, but rather as someone she can control. Given her actions and words that day, I think few would argue that moving away couldn't come soon enough. I'm excited to share some wonderful news. The emotional roller coaster I've been on recently has a beautiful reason behind it. I'm pregnant. We discovered this a few days ago, and it has filled us with immense joy. This, along with my husband's recent promotion, seems like the universe aligning perfectly for us at just the right moment. We're ecstatic about starting this new chapter in our lives, though we've decided not to share this news with my in-laws for obvious reasons. In fact, we've taken the step of blocking them on all fronts. My husband has made it very clear to his father that if his mother attempts to visit us after her last outburst, he will not hesitate to involve the authorities. He's firmly closed the door on any further contact, a decision his father reluctantly accepted. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law missed a significant opportunity to be part of her grandchild's life. Had she just managed to keep her composure for a few more weeks, things might have been different. But given her recent outlandish behavior, I'm relieved she revealed her true nature before our child arrived. I couldn't bear the thought of her disruptive presence around our baby, or me during such a crucial time. We are in the midst of moving, and I'm ensuring that our new address remains a secret from my in-laws. The last thing I need during my pregnancy is an unexpected visit from my mother-in-law. Right now, our focus is solely on our future, building a peaceful and happy life for our soon-to-arrive baby. I'm looking forward to embracing motherhood and all the joys it brings. We just want our family to thrive in tranquility, free from any external drama,